inside of the intro of the why, like why this show, why do you care? Yeah. Understood. Know your audience. So like the very first thing in building a brand, again, I'm just going to speak CMO experience, agency experience, which Mike's been a part of that as well. Whenever you build a brand, you have to start high level. And that high level is, who am I? Like, what are my core values? What is the makeup of this company? What is different about this company? What are my, it used to be the old J. Abrams, right? What is your unique selling proposition? That was very much 70s technology. Today, as we have evolved, it's not just what's my unique selling proposition. That's truly just the beginning. You now have to look at a lens inside of 360 degrees, because the advantage of digital, the advantage of social, is you now have true integration and you have true interaction. The disadvantage to digital and social is you have true integration, and you have true right, and you have true interaction. So if they don't like what you're saying and you're not playing in a transparency space, you will be busted. Man. And we've seen it over and over again. We see brands get dinged over and over and over again. Millions of cases now, I'm sure. But so to that point, high level, define who you are, core values first, then get the brand. And then once you get the brand, then you start looking at who is the audience that needs the brand. Yep. You'll notice we haven't pulled a single lever yet. We haven't talked a single platform yet. This is true, and I don't care what size business you are. This is the challenges that Mike and I run into every single day when we're meeting these small businesses is you have to know who you are and you have to know your audience, and we can help you identify that, but that has to come before I want to start ad spend and get dollars out and get people in the door. Am I wrong?
And well, no, I was gonna say, and it's amazing at how many businesses aren't thinking that way because we're so trained to just jump into the marketing. Like, I got my business, okay, now I need to market it. No, you should take a step back and say, who do I marketing to? Like, who is my audience? What is it that what is the message? Like, one of my favorite business books, and again, this is kind of dating me a little bit, but is that, and it, he highlights Southwest Airlines, which may not be as true today as it was at the point, but is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, right? Why am I doing this? And that's a book that when I started my company was that really helped drive, like, why am I doing this? Because if I'm doing this and my idea is this, then there is an audience. And I always ask my clients, every time I sit down with them before we start work together, is your brand known and is your product known? And if those two pieces, like if I'm selling a widget, do people know about that widget? And then do they know that my brand is associated with that widget? And if either of those two are not easily answered yes, then we have to dive into that so that way we can make sure that the audience, when we choose the levers, the audience has to be able to know your brand and know your product so that way they can make an informed decision. And to your point, we think back really quickly, as you were talking before, the paradigm has shifted so much into the hands of the user. And I love how you talked about how this integration has been great and terrible, because one of the things that we don't think about is that in the past, think of the Yellow Page world, right? Talk about dating ourselves. Think about the Yellow Page world. When you had a Yellow Page ad, the user could only do one thing. They could call you, right? That's it. There wasn't even if we did have a website link on it, they would still have to go from the Yellow Pages to a computer, right? Now, and in that world, that paradigm, all of the power was in the advertiser's hands, because once they called you, now you got them. That's the only way they could interact with you. And as I know we're going to get into this with Google, but as a transition into that is that now the user is learning more about you. In some cases, in Google Business Profile, they're not even going to your website. They're learning about you. They're making a decision about you. They don't have to pick up the phone. So they're going to know about you, or what their perception is of you, and they might leave and you'll never know they were there. The paradigm is completely shifted. It's all in the user's hands now. So as you said, if you don't start with that foundation of building your brand and really putting that foundation in place, then what's going to happen, and when you put out content, whether that's in an ad or in video or whatever, when you're putting that content out, if you're not cognizant of who the audience is, they could see it, they could leave, and you would never know they were there. And that's scary. That's the drawback.
It's terrifying. All right, so this is the interactive portion. Two things. I want your feedback, obviously. Mike and I both will be monitoring that, but I'd like for you to take a moment and Google yourself, right? That's one of the first things that we ask any LO or realtor, particularly when they come over to a new company.
Yeah.
Because we have this ridiculous digital footprint, and half the time we're not even aware of how deep that footprint is, even to old Zillow profiles and Redfin profiles, and you can relate, right? So Google yourself first and foremost, because the minute you Google yourself, you're getting the first opportunity to see how other people see you.
Yeah.
You're already getting the first look behind the curtain, if you will, of what is your perception. And by the way, I'm very specifically saying perception versus reality, because you touched on it perfectly. In our world, it's not about reality.
Yeah.
It is all about perception. So I have to craft that 360 degrees. You as an individual brand will also have to craft that. Perfect lead in, right? Like
I didn't mean to go there.
We'll talk to you without, they're going to find out about you without even seeing you. I wanted we're going to hit 4 kind of different things, just again to give you the flow, but the big thing that I want to talk about today, and it's so simple but so hard, is going to be Google reviews.
Yeah.
Because it's something that they go and look at without looking at you. You'll never know that they were there, but your reputation is everything. It's just everything. So we'll start with that. Mike, the expert on Google, let's talk Google reviews. Let's go there first.
Well, so I love that this is kind of one of the first subjects that we're touching on, right? And the reason for it is, as you were talking to a minute ago, what levers am I going to pull, right? Those levers imply that you need to spend something. Before we spend money, can we let's stop and we always talk about this, can we just clean up our own backyard first, right? Can we just clean up our own backyard? I love that you say, go search yourself. What are you seeing? What is the world seeing when they're looking at you for the first time? Because here's what we know. We know that in the initial path of a user, we know that there is going to be a minimum of 4 touch points before they'll call. Right? No matter what industry. I know we talked before about the journey. I'm not talking about the final journey. I'm just talking about the initial interaction before I can ask a user to communicate with me, fill out a form, interact with me. I need to influence them 4 times. And so one of those times is no doubt going to be a search for you and the reviews. What are they seeing? What is the rest of the world seeing? We were alluding to a stat where 99 point something percent of user or of purchasers last year considered a review. And so reviews are a great way. It's foundational, right? Meaning I don't have to spend any money. I just have to clean it up, and I need to make sure that I'm emphasizing it. So I don't have to spend any money here. B, I know that my user is going to consider these reviews in their journey, right? And then C, I want to make sure that these reviews are authentic, right? And that people are, so it's great to have a 5-star rating, right? But just like it's like anything, like you're never perfect. So if we want those reviews to be authentic. So as we get into it, I can't emphasize enough, if you don't have if you don't have your Google, which was called Google My Business, now called Google Business Profile, if you don't have your access to that, you want to know, because you want to be able to see how are people interacting with that. So we'll get into that a little bit, but reviews are a part of Google Business Profile, and so I just can't stress enough how important it is to monitor that page, monitor those reviews, respond to those reviews, but more importantly, build a culture in your business that is prepared for reviews or testimonials, and I know we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. So
beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate you saying it, and specifically the setup, if you will, of what's next, because there's 1,000,001 questions truly about Google reviews.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to point to, actually. Just specifically for LOs and realtors. If you're an LO, like for example with Mortgage Solutions, we have a reputation management platform that literally if you will, old Google My Business, right?
Yeah.
We manage all of that. So how do you hack that, right? Like how do you get in and affect reviews? One of the easiest hacks I've seen, and I've seen it done with devastating effect, if you're at a branch with a bunch of LOs, right, but the Google pin is on that branch, Mike, one of the things I've seen really, really good LOs do is they will get the testimonial, but then they have them mention their name.
Oh, man.
What a free advertising, number one, for you as your brand, right? So you're piggybacking in such a beautiful synchronization, if you will, with the parent or the umbrella company, but now you're developing your own brand and you're developing that through that testimonial. And by the way, we'll put up some stats for you on how powerful testimonials are and how powerful the word of mouth is, right? But consider word of mouth isn't just somebody speaking this way. Word of mouth now is reviews. That's one way it's considered word of mouth. So, or anywhere that you were mentioned in digital space or social space. So that's number one. How else do you think they should handle reviews, and then what are the do's and don'ts?
So, wow, that's a really big question.
Boom.
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, if in any client that I'm working with or anything that we're talking to, is you need to create a culture. We call it a complaint-friendly culture, right? The idea is that especially if you're meeting somebody in your office, we want to know before they leave your office how their experience was, right? Or we want to give them the opportunity, because here's the thing, we can head off a lot of bad reviews by just addressing it there. So, and it seems silly, but like little things, like do you have a sign in your office that reminds a client or a potential client every time they come in and go out, hey, if something happens today and it does not exceed your expectations or is not perfectly satisfactory, this is what I would like you to do. Will you please let me know? Give it up, and it seems so simple, but a negative review, in most cases, there's really two types of people that write a negative review, right?
Really amazing, really help me.
Yeah.
Really, please, if I could just make this go away.
Yes.
One of the other.
Yeah. So if it is a true review and it's an authentic review, then that user is attempting to help the rest of the world either know how wonderful you are or that they should never come work with you. That may or may not be reasonable, but if we head that off first and we give our clients the opportunity to complain, right? Or to praise, but more likely to complain. If we give them that opportunity before they get home, before they're sitting there to write that review, you're just giving yourself a much better opportunity of eliminating some of those negative reviews. The second thing I would talk about is does your staff know what you want them to do when that complaint happens, right? Does every one of your clients know? Do they have a direct line to whatever your process? If you want it coming to you as the owner, do you want to go somewhere? Does every one of your staff members understand and know what the journey is for somebody if they have a complaint?
Which is critical.
It's critical, and it's so commonly overlooked because we look at this and we think of reviews. We think, oh man, look at they got a negative review. Right, we can handle that, and we'll talk about this in a second. But if I can head that off, then at least I know that even if I do get a negative review, that it's still constructive, right? And here's the thing is I think we have some stat, I have to remember to look it up, but the percentage of people that have their opinions changed by how an owner responds to a review is pretty big. And so we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, but I feel like I'm rambling. But so what are we doing to head off the review in the first place, right? Secondly, I love how you talked about how do I train a user to write a review? And there's no rules for this. Obviously, Google, we're not soliciting here, we're not doing anything, but to have that conversation, I just, again, we are all in a people business. All the tech that we have, we are still in a people business, right? And if your staff is trained to talk to a user and literally using verbiage like, hey, I'm a small business, it would really help me if you would be willing to write this review. And if you wouldn't mind doing that, including my name in that, or including whatever pieces of that, and what portion, what product, what service did I provide for you? If you have that conversation with your client while you're sitting across the table from each other, the chances of getting that review and having it being an authentic and authoritative review are going to be much higher.
Hold that thought.
Yes.
You have a great story around that.
I do.
The timing of the review.
Yeah.
I want to speak to some of the stats that you talked about. On the negative side, we've got a pretty savvy series of generations now matriculating in, right? Gen Z, they're smart. They don't expect a company to have all good reviews. In fact, they look for both sides.
Absolutely.
So they want to see how you're going to address, if you will, the haters. Mm-hmm. As a business, it is equally, if not even more, in my opinion, it's more important that when you get a bad review, you deal with it, responsive, you have to be quick, and thorough as possible. Research it first. So we'll actually go and research the loan number.
Yeah.
And then we get the branch manager and the LO involved in that conversation because you need to hear 360 degrees. Additionally, we're in a highly regulated area,
right.
Just like the medical area, right? If somebody complains about, just throwing it out there, like say one of the hospitals, HIPAA is going to be all over that if you address any personal information. So too are we in that space. And there's a higher play here. Everything you do should be working towards increasing brand trust, which is under attack right now. Every brand in the world is dealing with an erosion of brand trust. So when you're talking with somebody, that level of empathy, that skill, if you will, of empathy is paramount. That you speak understanding that the negative review generally is out of anger or pain. Anger or pain really is the underlying emotion.
Absolutely.
So deal with that from an empathetic, spot, number one. Know what you need to know to answer them. And also offer immediate response either via telephone or email. Don't just leave it in the space of digital or social. I've truly found that is killer if you just try to play the back and forth game, because then you don't even know if you're dealing with a troll, and they are out there, right? We've had reviews, Mike, as I'm sure you've seen, they weren't even customers once we went to research it. So I'm just going to speak to the negative just for that second. Please add on to that.
You won't win that PR battle.
Right.
I love how you just said that. Get it out of digital as quickly as you can, right? To your point, respond to both. Respond to good reviews, respond to bad reviews. There's a stat that we referred to here that a good response, a good review response, what's the number here, improves the opinion of 67% of negative reviewers by your response. And the key to it, to your point, is this cannot drag on in digital, because now the argument, as irrational as it might actually be, is for everybody to see. So I love how you said that like address it with who you are and why you're the one responding to this review, especially if it's negative, and then invite them to communicate with you directly.
Yeah, you need to solve. If you can't solve, you need to solve. By the way, I'm sure you've seen this in businesses over the years that you and I have worked with all these small companies, and also, again, from the marketing director side. Sometimes the bad review is your biggest advocate.
Absolutely.
If you turn it around, it's your biggest advocate because you saved something. All right, let's talk good reviews. The timing of getting a good review.
Yeah.
I loved your story. We were talking about this off camera earlier. So if you don't mind sharing, do you mind sharing?
No, I don't mind sharing. No,
let's share it and then let's talk about timing.
Yeah, it is. I do. I share this story a lot. My wife and I adopted our son from birth. We worked with an agency, and we think about this from a review standpoint. And I'm in the review, because this is what I do, right? And so you would think, outside of, I guess, purchasing your first home, what is the biggest life event you have is having a child, right? Well, our journey to having a child was a little bit different, right? And it was a long one, and we credit, here we now have a baby boy. Of course, he's now he's not a baby anymore, but
he's playing hockey now.
He's a hockey player. He's a hockey goalie, which is don't do it. But we, so we go through this whole process, and we're working with the agency, and they, all of a sudden, here we are at the hospital, and now we've got a brand new baby boy, right? And I think about this, like, this company, this agency changed my life. Like, they took so many steps, and they changed my wife's and my life. And so if you're ever going to write a review, that's what you're writing it on, right? Because these people literally changed my life, right? I equate it to the mortgage space or to the home. Like, you're helping this user change their life, right? This user, I'm a digital guy, right? You're helping this client change their life. So anyway, sorry, I'm dragging this story on. So so here we are. Now we have this amazing experience. We have such incredible feelings towards this agency, and then we go home, and now we're parents. And any parents know, like, it was a little bit overwhelming. This was our first child, obviously. And so my willingness or my intent to just praise this company all of a sudden just dwindled, simply because now I was a dad, and I'd never been a dad before. And gosh, if that agency had thought at that moment, there's that emotional moment when I recognize as your client that you just changed my life. If I find that time to right now ask them to write a review, imagine how great that review is going to be. Or, you do what unfortunately for the agency, they never asked me, which means even my own intentions of, I really want to do something. I feel like I owe this agency something because they worked so hard to change my life. Then time happens, and that review, A, if you still get it, it's not as emotional, right? B, it's not as thorough, right? And so, gosh, if I share this story all the time, because if I could just make sure that every company knows to look out for that, we call micro moments, right? There's micro moments on the way to a purchase, and then there's micro moments that happen throughout the transaction and then after. And if I can find that micro moment, if I teach a business to find that micro moment and use that to ask and you're still being authentic. You guys are both excited. You just helped them. They're excited. They just got this. There's that moment. Ask them then and see what kind of reviews you get.
I can't step over that. I'll never forget when Google came out with that incredible video talking about micro moments.
Yeah.
And they are the king, back to search, right? They're the king of this idea of a micro moment. What they mean by it is when it's important to the customer is when it is very important to you.
Yeah.
And inside a search, that minute that I go to look for adoption, right?
Right.
That is a micro moment, because I'm feeling all those moments or those feelings of, I'm gonna get a kid and, this is our journey. That is a micro moment. Those emotionally charged times in our life. And you as a brand, if you can attach to that, those are lifetime clients. That's when we really get into what Mike and I love to talk about with customers, is the idea of a lifetime value of a customer. And again, back to these reviews, you can literally go down and look at your timeline of really powerful reviews. Mm-hmm. I remember those. I remember this couple. Those are advocates for you. And that, again, sort of the highest form of advertising when you get an advocate of a brand. I'm going to circle back to timing. Super, super important to this idea of diminishing timing. In a lot in the real estate space and in the lender space, we run now with some pretty hefty engines, customer relationship management engines. And inside of those, we develop journeys. A lot of companies do that. But if you're a small individual LO or a realtor and you don't have that, get something so that you're staying in communication throughout the loan. That's what we're talking about, these micro moments. Hit them then. Add personal video and phone calls and touch points as much as you can. And then the true timing of the review, which is gold for you. It's not just, for MSF, if you will, in the space.
Celebrate it, right? And celebrate it in your office when you get those reviews, because you know how hard you work to get it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. At closing, I know a lot of it's because our time is ridiculous now. Like what we got to try to get done in a day. I completely appreciate that. If you can get to closings, even if you can't get to a closing, get somebody there to film the moment. Like even if you pay another $50, that is worth millions in your pocketbook long term. But we step over it because, and that's fair to you, I get why we step over it. We do too, we get caught up with it too. It's the few, we're done, we got her done.
Yeah, right.
But we just started in the owner's eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Is that not right? But to the LO, absolutely justified. And even to the company, closed the loan.
Right.
Signed, done, dusted. But to the customer, the experience has only begun.
The journey just started.
Yeah, and that's when we want to get those reviews. So that's our timing. We actually send out a customer satisfaction survey within 3 days of close.
Yeah, good.
And then we do a follow-up with Google reviews. But I want to speak again to small business and individual LOs and real estate agents. Guys, this is the time to get your brand out there more than our brand, I think. That's why I wanted to start it with reviews, honestly.
Yeah.
Hack it, have them use your name, do video. Even if you do a review on Google, you also should load that up, get a YouTube account.
Absolutely.
Facebook, wherever you want to populate it. So again, when I search you, right, this is why I was talking about the Google footprint.
Yeah.
When I search you, I want to find that video of another customer talking about you.
Yep.
It's the highest form of advertising, and I think the easiest way to grow your business.
Well, to really geek out here for a second.
Please.
Google literally changed their algorithm a little over 10 years ago based off of the idea that prior to the big shifts in their algorithm for how businesses show up organically, they literally changed it from weighing heavily on what was on the business's website to what was the rest of the world saying, right? And I mean, think of that, like prior to really 2011 is really when this shift happened. This is when you were starting to see social media take shape. We changed the way we use the internet. And so it's such a major piece of what you're talking about is because the journey, as you said, is just starting for the customer, and their ability to talk about you, or for you to talk about yourself in a way that obviously is not, self-admiring, but like that you're telling the story, you're telling a true authentic story. That is what we need, and that's what users are doing, and that's what Google is really looking for. Over the last 6 or 7 years, to really again geek out, in Google's PageRank algorithm for organics, the one of the channels that has stayed in the top factors for what Google is considering is social signals. What is happening socially about your business? So you're right. I love how you're talking about collect those assets when you can get them, because you never know when you could use them. Like you said, put them onto a YouTube channel, have them, whether you're promoting them or not. That content is gold, and
Flyers.
You can't recreate it.
Yeah, you do it you could really do this in every format. Flyers,
Absolutely.
Postcards, your profile. In fact, we initiated this. We have a global. In a lot of companies, it's not that we're lazy, right? But we're trying to create a global brand, if you will. So and we have to update it too, even on our website, as you know. Please don't go to the website. We have so much to do.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm really keen in on inside of these signals is we want your testimonials. Just to name one of our great LOs, Adam Felke, right? I want Adam Felke's testimonials on our website.
Yeah.
So that we're lifting Adam already with our SEO work and with blogs and everything we're doing, but I want him to have his individual brand. And I think this is a massive shift, by the way, in the space, which we could go on. We may even talk about this on another one, but it's a massive shift from it's all about the global brand to now global brands are not only recognizing, but tapping into this idea of influencers, but there are salesmen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter your industry. You're really going to see this shift more and more. In fact, recent study from Forrester, this is a Forrester thing, and we'll post this on the show for you. They're estimating we were at $5 billion in influencer marketing, $5 billion in 22. They're projecting us to be at $7 billion in 24.
Wow.
This idea of influencer branding,
Yeah.
back to testimonials, right? Recommendations, whatever you want to call it. Endorsements is really the true term. That is going to explode. And LOs are just getting into that game, I think. So there's another hack for you. If you
Yeah.
want to, I think, exponentially grow your business with the end in mind, start working testimonials and start looking for influencer groups and treat yourself as an influencer. Start
Absolutely.
building yourself as an influencer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think here's the thing. This is at the core of what we are trying to accomplish online is we want to, the more people that are talking about you, the more recognizable you are, and this goes all the way back. All advertising works, right? And so finding those opportunities to grab those assets, to build that, and then I love how you're talking about the LO is an influencer.
Oh, no question.
Oh my goodness. And so to continue down the path of where and when, it's a funny thing in social they say, right? If you're not going to talk about yourself, then nobody else will, right?
So true.
So true. And so finding those moments to think socially, think about sharing, think about this story, right? And it's not bragging. That's not what it is. It's about sharing authentically who you are, and why you do what you do, and make no, obviously in the home loan space, in the mortgage space, in the real estate space, people need to connect. We always laugh as an agency because there are doctors, the lawyers, right? Loan officers. Like, you're not a real person. Like, I see you're advertising, but I need to connect with you, right? And if I get to see that story, right? I get to see the story. I get to see you in action. I get to see how you work. Yeah, video content is gold. I mean, the video content is so important, and real, authentic video content. It doesn't all have to be heavily produced.